Morning, everybody. I hope this fall season has been treating you well so far. I cannot complain. It's been mid-70s all of October, which I've never experienced before, and I love it. But with that being said, I've got nothing else today. Let's get right into it. Less than a month before the Yankees ever won their first World Series in 1949, New York was the location of a brutal and unsolved murder of a young girl. This is the story of Joanne Ena Lynn. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. My sources for today come from unsolved.com, which I am loving as of lately, a Robert A. Waters article, Wikipedia, of course, and the rest I will put down below. Born on April 20th of 1938, Joanne Ena Lynn was every parent's dream child. All accounts describe her and her family as, quote, happy. The Lynn family resided in the Hemlock neighborhood near the Finger Lake region of the state of New York. For those unfamiliar with the area like myself, Hemlock is just south of Rochester, roughly 40 miles. So it's super far inland, close to the Great Lakes. A beautiful little area that doesn't even qualify as a town itself according to Google, more of a municipality, I think. And with a population of less than 500, I can't say I'm all that surprised. However, Hemlock Lake, named for the endless hemlock trees, and the surrounding area is quite stunning. It's small compared to some of the other Finger Lakes, but still breathtaking. I say small, but it is 7 miles long, and it's the main water reservoir for the city of Rochester, and I assume many other small towns. Just for reference, though, since I became curious at this point, the longest Finger Lake is Seneca Lake, and that stretches for over 38 miles. Anywho, I'm sure the Lynn family and Joanne herself thoroughly enjoyed their peaceful life encircled in this wilderness. According to Robert A. Waters, as she did every weekday morning, Joanne Ena Lynn, who was 11, left her home at 8 a.m. on September 19, 1949, to walk to school. Fall had come early that year, and the trees were rusty red along State Road 15A in Hemlock, New York. Joanne wore a blue and white candy-striped dress, a red sweater, white bobby socks, and tan shoes. According to local reports, Joanne at this time was described as being about 5'2" and just over 100 pounds. Small little girl. That morning, Joanne had barely made it an eighth of a mile before she was abducted. We know Joanne was taken in the morning because she never showed up for school. However, no one really noticed she was missing until after school when she never returned home to her waiting mother, giving this abductor, her kidnapper, essentially an 8-hour head start. Police were called that evening, and by the next morning, searches were in full gear. Quote, search teams combed the hills and gullies and dragged the lakes surrounding the area. Spotters from airplanes looked for the girl while police bloodhounds padded through heavy forests. After 4 days of futility, the National Guard was called in. On September 23rd, guardsmen searched all day through a driving rainstorm and came up empty, end quote. However, the following morning, a 14-year-old girl on September 24th came across the body of Joanne while collecting butternuts about 4 miles outside the town of Hemlock. More specifically, Joanne was 200 yards off of Route 15A in the woods. All that work from the National Guard, police, everybody, and it was just a 14-year-old girl who came across her. As for the crime scene, quote, the child lay face down in a ditch. Lieutenant William Stevenson of the state police told reporters that she'd probably been, quote, lured or dragged into an auto and taken out of the car and shot twice as she cringed in a grove of locust trees. One bullet entered her forehead and pierced her arm as she tried to shield her face. The other entered her left breast and emerged from her back. Both bullets were collected as evidence." End quote. Dr. Brown, the county pathologist, concluded that there may have been an attempted rape, but the perpetrator was unsuccessful. Much of the evidence shows that Joanne fiercely fought with her attacker. But the odd thing, although fully clothed when she was found, her undergarments were missing. When news broke of this horrific incident, 2 witnesses came forward with what little information they could provide. The morning of her disappearance, these 2 witnesses were on the road and happened to see a girl fitting her description, and she was, quote, walking towards a 1938 to 1940 gray sedan with a Pennsylvania license plate, end quote. The lead detective, Mr. Donald McColl, sent out a 14-state alert for that vehicle. How he did that in 1949, I do not know. Telegram, maybe? Investigators then interviewed all known sex offenders in the area, but again, they fell short. Even after they established the murder weapon was a German Luger semi-automatic pistol, nothing. Quote, "For years after the murder, every time a German-made gun was found to have been used in a crime in New York or Pennsylvania, Sheriff McColl had it tested to see if it matched the bullets collected from Joanne. None ever did." End quote. This man is very dedicated to solving the case. And this detective was very forward-thinking in his approaches. According to the Robert A. Waters article, this detective developed a, quote, secret witness plan. Citizens had gathered close to $4,000 as a reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the murderer. Detective McColl asked anyone with knowledge of the case to write or type that information on a sheet of white paper. Newspapers reported that, quote, McColl suggested tipsters withhold their names but devise a combination of 6 or more numerals, placing the figure on 2 corners of a sheet and tearing off 1 corner before mailing, end quote. In this way, they could claim their reward anonymously. Now, how innovative is that for 1949? Sadly, despite these immense and non-ending efforts, years went by without progress. In 1958, nearly a decade since Joanne's murder, the lead detective, Mr. McColl, passed away, working this case until his death, essentially. 40 years later, in 1989, a man by the name of William Henry Redmond was arrested and convicted of the 1951 rape and murder of 8-year-old Jane Althoff. Quote, a twice convicted child molester, Redmond had worked for much of his life at carnivals and fairs around the country. His fingerprints were found in a pickup near Trainer, Pennsylvania, and Althoff's body was found inside the truck. After he was arrested, police reported that he admitted to her murder, but unfortunately, he died of heart disease before he could be tried. End quote. Although a separate case entirely, investigators pinned this man as a suspect in multiple cases, including the murder of Joanne Ena Lynn. An article from the Grand Island Independent reads, quote, Robert Montgomery, a New York State police investigator, wrote in an August 1991 affidavit filed in Hull County Court that his agency's crime lab had established a DNA profile of the killer from samples of Joanne's clothing. It continues, quote, Redmond worked before and after Joanne Lynn's death as a Ferris wheel operator and truck driver for various traveling carnivals. At the time of her death, the Hemlock Fair and Carnival was in progress 6 miles south of where her body was found, end quote. That same article goes on to claim that he had been a suspect in Joanne's case since 1951 after Redmond killed Jane, but if that is true, this is the first we hear of it in 1991. According to Wikipedia, William Henry Redmond was born on January 22nd of 1922 in Ohio. After he sexually assaulted 2 young girls in Lancaster, Ohio in 1935, he was arrested for the first time and given a sentence that included time in both the Ohio State Reformatory and the Ohio State Psychiatric Hospital. That's crazy. He was 13 and sexually assaulted 2 young girls. No. Yeah, 13. He was detained once again in 1938 for the attempted rape and assault of a preteen girl, again in Ohio, and he was also charged with sexual assault in Florida in 1949, many years later. Consistently just a poopy person. He's also a suspect in the 1951 disappearance of 10-year-old Beverly Potts in Ohio and the unsolved murder of 7-year-old Maria Ridulf in 1957. So after his arrest for Jane Althoff's murder, police searched his residence and found a troubling collection. Redmond had a stash of pre-teen underwear and undergarments, all of it. How many pairs? How much? It's unclear, but it was more than a handful. And now, this is frustrating, but police have never revealed if that DNA profile that they formed and collected from Joanne's clothing was a match to Redmond. And to me, now this is just conjecture, but that means one of 3 things possibly. 1, he simply wasn't a match. 2, the results were inconclusive and they're hopeful for future better results. Or 3, they never even tested Redmond's DNA against the perpetrator's profile. Either way, it's frustrating that we don't have a definitive answer, either yes or no. The best suspect is still this Redmond character in the case of Joanne and Beverly and Maria. But until that can be proven, her case will remain unsolved. And that, my friends, is the murder of Joanne Ena Lynn. I mean, I think he did it. And even if he didn't, he's still a guilty goose of all those other crimes, so I don't feel bad. You know, he's 0% good. Anywho, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. If you're itching for a little bit more, stick around for a short bonus story. Please. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Alrighty. Sticking to the tune of solving unsolved cases, Interpol has stepped up in recent years. This is titled, Interpol Seeking Public's Help to Identify Women in 46 Cold Cases, of CBS. Quote, global police body Interpol on Tuesday launched a new campaign to identify 46 women whose remains have been found across Europe in unsolved cases, some dating back decades. The initiative from the Lyon-based organization builds on the success of the first Identify Me campaign, which last year helped identify the body of a woman, dubbed the, quote, woman with the flower tattoo, found murdered 31 years ago in a Belgian river as Britton Rita Roberts. This original initiative, launched to identify 22 deceased women, saw some 1,800 tips received from the public. Now, the campaign has been expanded to include cold cases from Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands, as well as unexplained deaths from new participating countries, France, Italy, and Spain. Most of the women were, quote, murdered or had died in suspicious or unexplained circumstances, the organization said. Interpol Secretary General Jürgen Stock said in a video, "We need your help. Let's work together to give these women their names back." He said that even the smallest piece of information can be vital in helping solve these cold cases. Whether it's a memory, a tip, or a shared story, the smallest detail could help uncover the truth, he said. Roberts had been identified over 3 decades later thanks to a tattoo of a black flower with green leaves, which was recognized by a family member in Britain. The family had contacted this appeal hotline within 2 days of the launch of the campaign. Now, Interpol is publishing images of the woman's faces, as well as images of items such as jewelry and clothing that were discovered at the various sites where the remains were abandoned. Jürgen Stock said, "Our goal in the Identify Me campaign is simple. We want to identify the deceased women and bring answers to families and deliver justice to the victims." Among the women Interpol is seeking to identify is the body of a woman dubbed the Woman in the Suitcase, with an estimated age of between 16 and 22. In autumn of 2005, her corpse was found in a red suitcase lying in the canal of the town of Schiedam in the west of the Netherlands. Her body was wrapped in a white duvet cover with red, pink, and blue flower patterns. The body of another young woman was found in a nature reserve near Berlin in November of 1988. She was dubbed the Woman in Men's Clothing. As of the time, she wore a gray-colored men's cotton shirt, blue jeans, and a men's coat. She had been, quote, violently killed, said Interpol. In a third case, the fully dressed body of a woman was discovered by a walker in the forest around the town of Mimir in eastern France in July of 2001. She was found in a bag made from a pair of curtains with a paisley pattern. This victim was 7 to 9 months pregnant. The oldest of the cold cases, the girl in the parking lot, dates back to 1976. Her body was found along the A12 highway in the Netherlands. 12 high-profile female ambassadors, including Dutch actor Carice van Houten and French former athlete Marie-José Pérec from the 6 participating countries, have been recruited to help rally the public's support. Has someone you know or close to you gone missing? Asked Van Houten in a video. Could one of them be your missing relative? The campaign has seen Interpol for the first time share previously confidential information, these so-called black notices about unsolved cases. The confidential notices intended for police can include information on the location where the body was found, biometric information such as DNA and fingerprints, dental charts, and physical descriptions of the body or clothing. Interpol is an intergovernmental organization for police cooperation between the 195 member countries. End quote. I don't know why they put that at the end of the article, and I don't know why I kept it. But way to go, Interpol. Interpol. Way to go, guys. It's really nice to see them making an effort. Welp, that is all I have for you, my favorite people. A bit shorter today. Whatever. Thank you again for listening in. I truly do appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next week. Okie dokie. Bye-bye.